Hey, what's up, guys? Ken here from the Retro Toyscapades channel in Malaysia. Today, I want to share my thoughts on the images of the new MOTU Revelation animated series that just launched online yesterday. In fact, barely 24 hours ago. Actually, there's been a storm of new Masters of the Universe related news breaking the internet this whole week. Now, the images of the new cartoon also arrived with fresh images of the new toy line as well that will be supporting the series. I talked about the toys yesterday. Now, I wanted to cover the toy images first because, frankly, it's always been about the toys. When it comes to me, it's always been the toys that get me the most excited. With MOTU, it's been the toys first and then everything else. Okay, I mean, everything else like the cartoon show, the comics, bed sheets, tumblers, sticker books, fridge magnets, I don't know, sandals, socks, boxer shorts, all that stuff is secondary. But I'll get more into that later. Okay, so the cartoon images. Firstly, I was so relieved, okay, that this didn't look anything like the She-Ra reboot from a couple of years ago. I mean, that series does have its fans, I'm sure, and that's great, okay? Anything to drive the brand. But I just didn't get into the new designs from the get-go, alright? Call it a personal preference, alright? I did watch a couple of episodes, but then I kind of just tuned out, right? Especially after I saw the designs for the new Hordak, and he looked like one of the Walking Dead zombies from the Michael Jackson Thriller video. But the series did run for 5 seasons, so it must have gotten itself a very good audience base. Maybe I missed out, and I don't know. Maybe it got much better after that, perhaps. But hey, if you guys have caught all the episodes, let me know in the comments how it turned out. Okay, I'm using the images for the video based off those that have been captured online. I think that the source has been Entertainment Weekly, and now basically every single pop culture website has since covered it. All right. So okay, the new Revelation series. Firstly, I'm so glad to see that this new CGI animated series does pay very faithful homage to the original designs of the characters. Actually, when you see the designs and the color palette and the animation style, of course, the first thing that you're going to think of is the 2002 reboot, all right? And I have seen it in the comments. A lot of people are comparing it to that. It does look very similar, but I'm thinking that we're going to see a lot of new elements in the animation, especially with how the characters move. Okay, I was looking at the picture they put up here of Prince Adam, and it's interesting that he has a very young and scrawny look, almost like a teenager. Now, in previous incarnations that we have seen, Adam has always been portrayed as at least a young adult. Now, the figures, okay, the action figures for the vintage, the classics, and the Super 7 versions have always portrayed an older Adam, okay? Definitely not as young looking as this. Actually, only the 2002 version of him gave us a very young looking Adam, which kind of further strengthens the perceived connection between both versions of the animated show, okay? And why a lot of people think that this new one, is very similar to the 2002 version. But then you see the version of He-Man that they've presented here, okay? So when this Adam, okay, this scrawny looking Adam becomes He-Man, he's like transformed into the size of a truck, okay? This could in fact be the biggest He-Man that we've ever seen on screen, just in terms of his size, all right? So there's definitely a very clearly defined transformation, in fact, okay? You definitely know the guy is transforming into something else, okay? By comparison, the vintage action figure, and you know what? I basically had to bring them both out here for the comparison. Okay, so the vintage action figure of Adam was basically the same guy, all right? The same guy as He-Man, just wearing different attire. Now, you'd have to somehow use your imagination to believe that people couldn't tell them apart. Also, and since I have him out here, I just wanted to mention that this elastic belt, okay, the one that you see around his waist. Now, if you're looking for the Adam figure on the secondary market, this belt, okay, this freaking piece of cloth is the rarest part of the whole figure. Yeah. Okay, anyway, the overall Adam figure was pretty boring, but they tried to distract buyers by adding a bit of a premium touch to it with the clothing. Ultimately, Adam is good friends with the sorceress, so you have to believe that there was an element of magic here. I mean, something must have been preventing everyone from telling them apart, right? Okay, back to the still images of the cartoon, and there's a really great shot here of Tila in action. And I like it how Sarah Michelle Gellar is back and voicing her part. That's right. I'm one of those people who has seen every episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and even Angel. And I would swear that it was the best thing on TV during the late 90s and the early 2000s. But if you notice, Tila here retains her original outfit and look, very much like the classic design, the one that has her thighs exposed. But they seem to have only redesigned Evelyn. And it's also a really great snapshot here of a character like Beastman. I mean, really terrifying looking. Actually, he looks seriously menacing and nothing like a clownish buffoon. Okay, remember in the 1987 movie, the He-Man movie where Skeletor got really angry and he fried the lizard bounty hunter Sorod? Okay, he just fried him with energy blasts. Okay, I did a video of that too on the channel. Actually, do check it out if you have the time. Yeah, but anyway, so Skeletor just fries Sorod, and Beastman is overcome by fear, and he starts mewling and pawing away at Skeletor's hand for forgiveness. I mean, the scene was just ridiculous, okay? But this image here, all right, this image shows you that Beastman is someone to fear, okay? This image shows you that he might just eat you. Okay, there's another image here that I'm sure was put out there just to get everyone guessing and talking and, speculating. Okay, mainly because you see Evelyn hanging out with the heroes. Okay, so what's the deal? Is it a temporary truce? Is she a neutral? Was this image taken before she turned evil? Or maybe, she's just been arrested. You also see a really interesting shot of Orko here, and he looks like he's just straight up posing with some real attitude. Now, I'm not sure what's happening here, okay, but his eyes look really evil and menacing. You also get a new character standing next to Tila, who, based on the liner notes, is supposed to be Andra. Now, there is a Lieutenant Andra in the comics, the Star Comics from Marvel, which only had a 13-issue run, but are surprisingly hard to complete, okay, because of, the fact that some of the later issues have really gone up in value. Okay, yeah, seriously, it's like impossible to complete the damn thing. Okay, but Andra is a close friend of Tila in the comics, and they do fight together, and all that seems to line up together because they are standing side by side here in this image. Except that in the comics, her character was that of a Caucasian, all right? Then we get Roboto here, okay? Roboto, only he looks kind of like he's in disguise, all right? Now, I guess with his robotic body hidden, people might just think that his mechanical head is a helmet, all right? So they may think that he's human. Anyway, I like how he's wearing a poncho like Clint Eastwood, or maybe like he's, navigating through Tatooine. Also, I just wanted to say that both Evelyn and Tila look like they're flexing some serious muscle here, okay? I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that don't even have muscles that are this defined. Okay, guys, so based on the images that we've been seeing, I think it's safe to say that this new MOTU Revelations cartoon is going to get a lot of the hardcore fans excited and invested in the series. For me personally, I'm definitely excited, but I think that when it comes to things like MOTU, and in fact, for a lot of the retro properties from the 1980s, my excitement level is measured first by the toys, okay, by the toy line, and also the need to reconnect back with the toys that I never had from my childhood. And when it comes to MOTU, I think that I never really had a solid connection with the classic animated series. I did grow up watching it. It was on TV all the time back then, and I think it came to a point where even for myself, as a kid at that young age, I started to realize that the animation was pretty subpar. I like the character designs definitely, but something about the cartoon failed to excite me more than the toys could. Okay, when I saw the toys and the artwork and the designs, it's like I had a different connection with the action figures, and I didn't really care about the way that they were actually portrayed in the cartoon so much. And when things like Thundercats started to appear on TV, that was like probably the first time in the 1980s where I was like, oh shit. It's like up to that point, I probably had not been exposed to a cartoon where I saw characters move the way that they did, okay? Especially in the intro scene, with Lionel, just leaping around, okay, and calling forth all the Thundercats. Up to that point, I never even thought it was possible that we could have animation of that level. And it began to make me realize that the stuff that came before was probably struggling under a limited animation budget. And there'll be stuff like He-Man cartoons. Sometimes you'd have like He-Man chasing Skeletor, and it just looked like two kids running after each other trying to play a game of hide and seek. Okay, yeah, so I think that for me, it's still definitely going to be the toys first. And for a lot of you guys out there, I think that it's either you're fans of the toy line, maybe you're the fans of the toy line and the cartoon, and some of you guys maybe just like the material, like the cartoon, but you're not really invested in the toys themselves. Okay, maybe just like watching animated stuff, and fantasy animation excites you, and the characters excite you, but you're not necessarily you don't feel the need to start a toy collection of your own. I was thinking about what I said about Evelyn's hair in the last video, where I was genuinely surprised that the new action figure of her from Revelation, shows her with long white hair, like kind of like Dante from Devil May Cry. And I was kind of surprised at what was happening here, And a lot of you did comment in the comment section that, hey, look, you know what? She did have white hair in the cartoon. And I realized actually what happened was just that my only real connection with Evelyn was through the action figure, okay? The 80s action figure, and also the subsequent action figures that we got from her from the 2002 series and even classics. And in every one of these figures that they put out there, she always had the headdress on. This new Revelation figure is the first time that they actually showed her with her hair down, and it's kind of a surprise to me, like, what the hell happened here? But that's just what I was talking about earlier, because I don't connect with the figure, with the lore of the character as was displayed in things like the cartoon, or maybe supporting material like the comic book or stuff like that. For me, it's just that the character is how the action figure presented itself to me, and I kind of like make up my own adventures with it, and that's basically my approach towards it. So it's like when these new Revelation figures come out, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people probably, they see it in the stores and they think that, hey, it looks pretty cool, I'm going to take it home. And they're just going to take it back, put it up on display, and enjoy it for what it is. But somebody says to them, hey, that there's also a cartoon playing right now and it's on Netflix, and the person will be like, yeah, okay, but I don't really have the time to get into the cartoon. All right. And then you could have somebody saying something like, oh, you know what, we finally have a He-Man figure that I could put up next to the DC Classics Batman that came out before this, and both He-Man and Batman could fight it out just like they did in the comic book. And then you'd be like, say what? They met each other in a comic book? And they said, yeah, totally, man. It's like it was in Injustice versus Masters of the Universe. So it's like, if you don't have a background or knowledge of the supporting lore and the supporting media surrounding these properties, probably you wouldn't know that, hey, look, you know what? Oh, yeah, okay, so He-Man met the Predator or something like that. A lot of stuff can happen in popular culture and in all forms of media. But I suppose it's that for most people, they probably only really connect with one aspect of it, and for me it's definitely the toys. But I want to hear from you guys. Okay, I want to hear from you guys in the comment section. Which aspect of the Masters of the Universe do you actually connect with first? The toys, the cartoon, maybe it's the comics, some aspect of it, but one of each is probably going to take preference over the other. All right, so do comment below. Now, with Kevin Smith overseeing the entire project, I gotta say that I do have a lot of confidence in him. I've been a Kevin Smith fan basically since the time I was a teenager, and he started putting out all those movies in the 90s. And growing up in Malaysia, I would read and hear about these movies from trade publications and stuff like that, but none of his movies ever would play in the cinemas here. Okay, none of them were ever picked up for distribution, in cinemas in Malaysia. So I had to find a way to watch them by myself. Score up a copy of a DVD here and there. I don't think any of them ever actually was greenlighted for play on TV either. Probably due to the language and other questionable aspects of the shows. But hey, you know what? I loved it. I loved all of his movies. Okay, I will say that his theatrical shows, Mallrats, Clerks, Chasing Amy, probably my favorite. They all have really brilliant scenes of character interaction. He's really good at writing characters, especially the dialogue. Okay, the dialogue, you'd see characters saying things that you wouldn't expect them to say, usually in a very humorous, offbeat kind of way. And I think that the one aspect of his movies that actually, you see that he suffers in is probably, in kind of like tying everything up, neatly at the end. There's always something at the end where I feel some aspect of it tends to maybe lose the plot or fall apart a bit. But still, everything that came before that is completely fun, all right? Total entertainment. When I heard that Kevin Smith would be doing comics, back in the 90s, I was a comic book collector, but, it was really hard to get comics back in the day in Malaysia because I lived in a small town and there wasn't a proper comic book store. But yeah, I heard that Kevin Smith was going to be doing things like the Green Arrow, and you know what, I struggled to get those copies. Okay, and it wasn't until years later when the trade paperbacks would come out that I actually finally got a chance to read them. And honestly, it was everything that I expected a script from Kevin Smith to be like. Okay, it's like an extension. The characters spoke in a way that was like an extension of the way characters in his movies would talk. But the one thing that his comics, I think, sort of like introduced was the ability for him to really choreograph solid suspense. I gotta say, okay, like real scenes of real shocking danger and just all out violence. Okay, that you would not expect. And I found a lot of his stories to be brilliant, okay? Especially when he crossed over into the Batman stuff. And then he introduced this one villain called the onomatopoeia. It's kind of a mouthful. Actually, if somebody said that to you, you really wouldn't know what the hell he just said. You have to see it spelled out, the onomatopoeia, okay? But this guy was like this villain that was out, I think, killing non-powered supervillains. Non-powered superheroes. Okay, he'd be out killing superheroes that didn't have any special powers. He's like a serial killer for heroes, and he crossed over this character from Green Arrow over into Batman's world, and then I think that's where the character really took off. But he ended it with such a cliffhanger that the story was never finished. All right, it's things like this. Okay, I mean, I think that his comic book history was interrupted somewhat. The work that he did in comics was interrupted, and he went back into movies. But I would love to see more of the stuff that he does with comics translated over into things like television or movies, okay, because I think in comics he really is able to display a side of him that probably you don't really get to see in the movies, maybe because of the budget or maybe because of the themes that are involved. But when it comes to Masters of the Universe, I think that we're going to see probably some element of a real threat, okay, a real sense of menace, okay. I think that's possible, definitely, and I'm honestly looking forward to this, okay. I think the launch is going to be really big, and now all that's left is just to hear from you guys, okay. From you guys out there, I want to know what you guys are thinking about these new images that we've been seeing. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And hey, before I go, I just want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you for sticking with me and staying tuned to the channel. It means a lot to me. The subscriptions have been going up. I'm currently at about something like maybe 1.4k subscribers. I hope that number is going to hit 2k, maybe by the end of the year, hopefully earlier, okay guys. But it means a lot to me, guys, that you're there, and I'm going to continue to bring you more content, okay, that hopefully you guys will enjoy, and I'll catch you guys again real soon. Take care.